Hello, everybody, and welcome to this season return. We are back. We've had a little break, we've had a little rest, we've gone away for Christmas, and here we are again, Craftcast. Midway through season 2, it's great to be back with you. As always, an absolute pleasure to be here talking about all things Freemasonry with my two favourite Freemasons, Brother James Dalton.
Hello.
And none other than Brother Stephen Whatley.
Hello there.
So I should point out at this stage that due to our previously discussed illustrious Brother James's hectic diary and status as the podcast's Phileas Fogg, we have been faced with no choice other than to record this episode virtually. Props to producer Marta for sourcing a adequate way for us to do this. James, what on earth are you doing? What are you thinking? Can you not stay in the country more than 5 minutes?
No, I absolutely cannot. I flew to the US on the 3rd of January, and I'm still here now for another week and a half. So being kind of between Indiana, Kentucky, and Miami, and I'm going back to Miami next week, which I was very grateful for, because last week in Indiana, where I am now, it was minus 22 degrees C, with a wind chill taking it to minus 25.
Bit frosty, James, yeah?
Very frosty. There's been some severe weather alerts, and I was down in sunny Miami in 27 to 28 degree weather. So I picked a very good week to take a trip down south.
It almost sounds like you're running to be the President of the United States. You're sort of doing a sort of tour of all of the bellwether states, trying to rack up some support. Is that something we can expect to see soon, a Dalton candidacy? We
got primaries and caucuses to drum up votes for. Very topical in election year, actually.
It is,
but yeah, I do feel like I have visited multiple states over the last few weeks. But I am quite looking forward to coming home. I enjoy traveling for work, but I like being at home as well and getting back into my Freemasonry in 2024.
Fair enough. And Brother Stephen Whatley, did you have a nice Christmas?
I did, thank you. Before I answer that question, I just wanted to say, did you notice, Shaun, that in season 1, James was sitting next to me, and then we redid the studio, and now he's sitting next to you, and he's run 4,500 miles away. Just thought I'd point that out.
Yeah, I had noticed it, to be honest, and I wasn't going to comment on it, but I now feel like you've highlighted it, so thanks. Yeah, obviously you need to get some better aftershave or something.
And it is personal, Shaun. It is personal.
I thought nothing less. Tell us, what did you get up to?
I rested. I took a break, avoid burnout, had some time with family, and spent a good, I think, a month and a half at home, which I think is the longest I've spent in Gibraltar since COVID, which was lovely. So I spent a good amount of time at home, had a couple of lodge lunches, had a craft and chapter meeting. So I had my mother lodge meeting where I raised a school friend of mine, which was really lovely. And then took an active role in the exalting of a candidate from my mother lodge into chapter. So
I don't want you to think that I'm stalking you, Stephen Whatley, but am I correct in thinking that you were in Portugal?
Yes, I went. So the group of lodges in Portugal appointed had a new Grand Inspector appointed, and so the District Grand Lodge of Gibraltar went up with the District Grand Master to invest the new Grand Inspector, and so we went up, a few of us as a delegation, had lots of food and lots to drink, all very healthy, of course, and just had a wonderful time there. Got to know some of the Portuguese brethren, some of the English brethren who'd have moved over to Portugal. It was all very, very positive and very enjoyable, to be honest. But yes, that's why I was in Portugal. Took a little road trip.
And you call me Phileas Fogg, Shaun, when Mr. Whatley here is doing the grand tour of Europe.
I'm clearly just really boring. I mean, that's what I'm getting from this. You guys are flying all over the place, and here I am, sat in Freemasons Hall.
What it is I'm worried that now that James has gone to America, Shaun's going to make me sit next to him.
Starting this year off in a positive way, getting ripped by my two mates. Brilliant. Okay, shall we get cracking? So we thought, on theme, It's a new year. What better place to start than by discussing our Masonic New Year's resolutions? Chaps, shall we get into it? Let's do it. Okay, so 2024 has reached us. Masonic New Year's resolutions. Now, what better place to start than with none other than Worshipful Brother James Dalton? So, James, forget your normal life resolutions. That's not what's important. Let's get into what's really important. What would you hope to achieve in your Freemasonry by the end of this year?
So my 2024 Masonic New Year's resolution, which I have thought long and hard about, is to spend more time in the Royal Arch. I was exalted into the Royal Arch probably 10 years ago now, and only was installed as Joshua, the third principal, in my chapter back in November, incidentally on my birthday. And it was a great experience, but I think I've been so busy going through the craft and all the offices in my mother lodge and other lodges that I'm a member of, going through the chair, taking on a provincial office for a few years now. But I really love the Royal Arch. It's a beautiful order, and it really does extend craft and complete the story of craft Freemasonry. And I think that for me, I just want to really try and make sure that if I have free time where I can dedicate some time to Masonry, that I really try and put the Royal Arch at the forefront of that this year and try and make a concerted effort to go to more Royal Arch meetings, because I do enjoy it so much. And I just need to be a bit more disciplined, I think, in making that a priority Masonically over the next 12 months.
To be fair, James, I think you need to cut yourself some slack, because it's not like you're not busy enough with your craft responsibilities. I'm sure that keeps you on your toes.
It does, yeah.
So I think you need to cut yourself some slack. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a very admirable resolution, isn't it? And are you confident you'll be able to achieve it? I mean, is it going to be one of these resolutions where, you know, within cut to sort of February and you're, I'm not going to bother with that anymore? How determined are you to see it through?
I'm very determined. Now, obviously, on this trip, I've been away, or will have been away, for nearly 5 weeks, so I haven't been able to go to anything. But I'm actually a member of 2 Royal Arch chapters, one of which, my mother chapter, just for various work-related reasons, I haven't always been able to attend much over the last few years. But I'm going to make a concerted effort to go to more of those meetings and actually to visit some other chapters as well. In the entire time I've been a companion, I've probably only visited 2 or 3 chapters ever, which, you know, I kind of kick myself over that, because I love visiting in the craft. It's one of the greatest things about Masonry. And then I love the Royal Arch. It's a beautiful order. So I really want to make an effort to, you know, attend more meetings as a member, but also to get out into the province and beyond and visit some other Royal Arch chapters, because I think one of the unusual things, or maybe not unusual, that's the wrong word, one of the interesting things about the Royal Arch is that, you know, in the craft, different lodges do different ritual. You've got emulation, tailors, Nigerian, whatever it is. But they're all pretty similar to each other. Whereas in the Royal Arch, you can get some really big variations from one province to another in the ritual. You know, I'm in a Warwickshire chapter and I'm in a Worcestershire chapter, and they do things very differently to each other.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, if you haven't yet had the chance, James and Stephen, I would really encourage you to go along and check out the Savage Club chapter ritual.
Yeah.
It is fantastic. We were lucky enough, after the Program Masters business meeting in November, we were lucky enough to go upstairs and be shown a demonstration of a Savage Club chapter exaltation. And it is fantastic. I mean, and I'm someone to be. I mean, I should add at this point, we're gonna have a whole episode dedicated to the Royal Arch. In fact, I'd say probably a whole series of episodes dedicated to the Royal Arch. And I'm sure the chaps will agree with me. We're very wary of the fact that we didn't cover it in the first season, and that wasn't for any other reason than we just wanted to make sure that when we did it, it was right and the timing was right. And there's so much work going on in the Royal Arch at the moment in terms of the narrative project, the Discover More narrative that's been completed now by the Committee of General Purposes and the Membership and Communications Working Party that reports into the Committee of General Purposes. That's a hugely important piece of work. So we just wanted to make sure that when we did get round to talking about the Royal Arch, we did so in the right circumstances. So bear with us. We are planning to do a whole series of episodes on the Royal Arch, aren't we, Stephen?
Yeah, certainly. I think it's having somewhat of a reformation in terms of communications, and it's really interesting to see that from individuals' perspective in a district. Even the progression, it feels somewhat like chapter is aligning itself well with the craft now, which is really exciting to see. And I've just probably should have told you by now, actually, Shaun and Marta, in fact, but I've just been appointed as district communications officer in the chapter now as well. So I will be busy with communications for chapter as well, as they are obviously aligned, as with most things, with the craft and chapter.
Stephen, congratulations! What an honour.
Well done,
thank
mate.
you.
Yeah,
thank you very much. Certainly an honour, as you say, and look forward. As we said, it's very aligned in terms of the projects, so it's really nice to be able to have the office to implement those as well. And not just draft plans, if that makes sense. Really looking forward to making a difference with that in Gibraltar and obviously elsewhere, but mainly in Gibraltar.
I think that single communication message is so important because, it is one organisation, as has been coming out from the centre, but it really is one organisation. The Royal Arch is a part of Masonry. If you look in the front of the Book of Constitutions, it quite clearly says that pure ancient Masonry consists of 3 degrees: entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason, including the supreme order of the Royal Arch. And so to have a unification of the communications roles, and I know a lot of provinces, including mine, are doing this as well. Some other roles, administrative roles across the provinces, many provinces have the head of both orders as the same person as well. It really just redefines and brings home that message that both orders are one organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, James, for sharing your Masonic New Year's resolution. We now move on to Worshipful Brother Stephen Watley. Stephen, what is your Masonic New Year's resolution?
Well, I would say there's 2 really. One is more, they're both personal. One is, what are you 2 giggling at?
Well, it always has to be extra, doesn't he? Always has to throw in an extra. Can't just have one resolution, honestly.
I really can't. You'll understand why in a second. Okay, so one is very personal in the sense of how I do my Masonry, in terms of I think, I'm 24 years old. I am in rather a lot of Masonic units and have a lot of responsibilities at district level, and obviously with communications, with Craftcast, with all sorts of different projects that I'm working on, which in a second will lead me to my second resolution. But really, so the first one is deciding what I want to be doing, not just what I'm obligated to be doing. Not just what I'm being roped into doing this and that, but deciding what I want to work on to make a difference and setting that out for the year ahead. And so got all my meetings in the calendar, all the different projects that I'm working on timed for certain weeks and months. And so giving people an advance notice, for example, saying, right, I can't be at this meeting because I'm going to be doing this. So I've sort of got my whole year worked out in that sense, so that it gives me the time to actually enjoy the Masonry I'm doing and not just run from one thing to another. And I think being master of my mother lodge has honestly been the most enjoyable thing I've done in Masonry so far. I've really loved it, and the frustrating thing is that I've at times had to go, well, I can't spend some extra time doing that for that because I've got this other thing to do that I would rather not be doing as opposed to that. And so that's my first resolution, really, just really organizing myself so I can prioritize what I want to do in Masonry to make a difference for others as well, and not spread myself so thin. So that's the first one. And the second one really is almost an addendum to that, which is a new project which has just been started, which is called the University Society Support Network, which has just recently, last week, been announced by the University Scheme and will be officially launched at the University Scheme Conference. So if you're a university student or part of a university lodge, then do speak to your university lodge about going to the conference. But this project is essentially a support network for students to help run Freemasonry societies at their universities. And it's something that I've seen a lot of students struggle with when they haven't had the support they need. And it's something that I am privileged to have had a good experience of, given the support I received from my parents, from my mother lodge, and from my university lodge. And so really, for me, it's very much about passing that on to others and to the student demographic who's interested in Freemasonry.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important, Stephen, and we've, again, reflecting on what's to come in the rest of the series, we do need to do, and I know you've been really keen to do, an episode on the university scheme, because it's a fantastic scheme and it's super important. And when you think about the role that it plays across the country, it's hugely important. So again, Stephen Watley banging the door down to do an episode on the university scheme. We are going to do one, and Stephen's obviously going to take point on that one, and hopefully people find that useful and interesting. But no, it's really good work, Stephen, that you're doing, and I'm really looking forward to sort of seeing the fruits of your labour when I'm at the university scheme conference with you in not very long at all, really, is it? It's going to come up very quickly.
In April, yeah, in
there
April.
We go.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's my second one, really, getting that set up and making a success of it to help people.
Brilliant.
And what's yours, Shaun? What's your New Year's resolutions?
Well, there we go. Well, I am at time of recording, a couple of weeks' time, I'll be going in as Senior Warden of Letchworth Lodge, number 3505, the staff lodge here at United Grand Lodge of England. And I think for me, really, it's just going to be about visiting more lodges. And chapters, absolutely, just to get that in there. I think genuinely, and I know we've said this before, and I know James has touched on it in his section, visiting, I genuinely believe, is the lifeblood of Freemasonry. And I didn't realise this when I first became a Freemason, but I felt like when I look back now, I was sort of only getting about 20% of the experience, maybe even less than that. Attending my lodge, 4 times a year, I was really not getting the full experience, and getting out there, visiting lodges, visiting as many provinces as I can. We've also spoken about taking the podcast out and visiting different lodges and different parts of the country to make sure that the voice you're getting from the official podcast of UGLE is an accurate voice for the whole of UGLE, which we're absolutely convinced is the right way forward. So, as I say, for me, focusing on delivering my best efforts as Senior Warden of Letchworth Lodge as I prepare to be installed as Worshipful Master in February 2025, which I daren't say either of you better not even dare not attend. So I'm particularly looking at you, James, when I say make sure you're in the country, number one, make sure around, and you, Brother Watley, that you're also in the country and that you're not sword fighting or taking some sort of university exam or, having a game of chess against somebody in a sports hall somewhere.
I'll get it in my file of facts now, Shaun. I'll pencil it in.
I'll send you both the date. I mean, I know it talk about pre-planning, but yeah.
Likewise, I'll put it in my diary, and if it falls on a university exam date, I'll tell the university I've got something more important to do.
Yeah, and absolutely right as well. What I feel like priorities here need to be established early on. You either love the podcast or you don't.
That's what we were talking about earlier, priorities. And I'd much rather be at your installation than doing an exam.
Yeah, and as I say, sword fighting, chess playing, fighting, taekwondo match, whatever it is that you do.
I was going to say, revealed in one of our most recent episodes, I've just casually dropped in. I'm also a taekwondo black belt.
Well, you realise, James, that by that time he'll probably also be a master painter, perhaps, a sort of grade 8 on the piano or the violin. The guy clearly has far too much time on his hands. I mean, he needs more stuff to do. That's, I think, the problem.
He needs more to fill his diary up, clearly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Please don't tell people that.
Too late. I mean, it's said it now. It's recorded. So I think that's genuinely my aim, getting myself in a position where I feel ready to go and to take on, what an honour, to take on the task of Worshipful Master of a lodge is a huge deal, and I'm very excited for it. And then, as I say, just getting out and about and experiencing Freemasonry in all its wonderful glory as much as I possibly can. So yeah, I think that's probably it for my Masonic, and of course, I mean, how did we forget Craftcast, guys? Come on, continuing to deliver
the most important of all Masonic New Year's resolutions. Yeah, that thing, yeah.
Come on, but in all joking aside, yeah, we've obviously come back from our break now, and I think we're really keen and determined to deliver a really successful second half of season 2 for the enjoyment of all of our wonderful listeners. I think we can all agree on that.
Well, I mean, personally, me saying about priorities, I think Craftcast is right up there, and it's one of the things that I've enjoyed the most in my Masonry so far. Not only, obviously, excuse the soppiness, but not only getting to become good friends with you guys, but also just I think the impact that we're privileged to have on so many listeners, it's the listeners that give us that privilege. So thank you guys as well. And also the people that I've met, the conversations that I've had with listeners, people saying, oh, I really like this that you did, or why don't you try this? And sparking important conversations like with the mental health episode. That's something that I'll forever remember as an impact that we had as a team that means a lot to me, with the messages that we received after that episode. So definitely that's high on my priority list. And I'm very much looking forward to doing more of that this year, of talking on the important topics in Freemasonry, talking about things that matter to our listeners, and having a good time along the way.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Stephen. And before we close, let's again just reflect on what you can expect for the remainder of season 2 of Craftcast. So we're going to be talking about the Royal Arch, we're going to be talking about the university scheme, and a number of other topics that we just feel really round off that experience of being a Freemason. And there's a hell of a lot going on at UGLE at the moment, and around the provinces and around the districts and in London, that are really worthy of a lot of attention. And we are determined to make sure that we give a voice to Freemasons all across UGLE, so that they're heard and that we can help tell their story. So we hope that you're ready for it. If anyone wants to get in touch with us, again, the channels, podcasts@ugle.org.uk, drop us an email. Get in touch with us on Twitter, UGLE_Grand Lodge on Twitter, United Grand Lodge of England on Facebook and Instagram. Drop us a message. If you have any ideas for content, if you think you'd like to appear on an episode, perhaps you're a member of a special interest lodge, like the science fiction and fantasy, like the football lodge that we've covered, get in touch, let us know. We'd be delighted to hear from you. And chaps, I think that's a wrap on our returner episode. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it went really well. 5,000 miles apart, but I think we pulled it off.
Just about. Stephen, what do you think?
Well, a pleasure as always talking to you guys. And I think we will certainly have some exciting goals to work towards. And we've certainly made ourselves accountable, telling everyone about them.
You're damn right. Good job of holding our feet to the fire, Stephen. You've walked you speak the talk, now you've got to walk the walk, my friend, I'm afraid. Ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Craftcast, and you'll be hearing from us again very, very soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye for now.
Craftcast, the Freemasons podcast. The podcast is hosted by Shaun Butler, Stephen Watley, and James Dalton. The producer is Marta Zandri, and the podcast is edited by Trisonic.